Greetings, mortals. It is I, Remortis. This time, coming at you with some Rogue Trader. More specifically, with the newest DLC, the Void Shadows. Now, I must apologize in advance, as this will be a very uncut and unedited video here. I just want to showcase some of the new changes that you can expect with the DLC. And I'll just go... And we'll be doing a little bit of theory crafting on top of that, too. So, one thing to note... right off the bat is no matter what difficulty you're picking, you can choose the Grim Darkness mode. As you can read here, manual saves will be unavailable. So basically this is your Iron Man mode or Honor mode from other games, etc. And then you can read here everything has to do with the Grim Darkness. So yeah, and Beta is available for any of these other modes. So if you want a little bit more challenge on whatever your current difficulty is, why not go to Grim Darkness mode? However, I most likely won't do this for the first run, but I will definitely do an unfair Grim Darkness mode in the very near future. Alright. Now, there are quite a few changes that they added for this new DLC. Unfortunately, we didn't get any new voices or DLCs yet, at least at the time of this recording, which is early access to this DLC. So maybe there might be some stuff in there that I don't know about just yet. Anyways, moving on. Let's go ahead and just pick whatever character, doesn't really matter. One thing to note, for one of the bigger changes, I should say, for this DLC is that they added a lot of new icons to all of the talents and such to make them a little bit more readable. Granted, some of them you may not be able to tell based on whatever the icons are, but at least you can kind of get an idea of what they might be just at a glance. As you can see here, and we'll go through each stuff later. I haven't really looked too deep just yet off of any changes out of these home origins. Sorry, only the home worlds. I'm assuming they're all going to be mostly the same. I haven't really read anything that says otherwise, but we're going to go into each class and see if there's any changes that we might have noticed. All right. All the origins are still the same. For the most part, maybe they get fixed some bugs here and there. I remember I had a few issues with my Surefire plant on my Crime Lord, for example. For some of the abilities. But anyhow, let's just go to what probably most people are anticipating is some good changes to the Pyromancer. That would happen fairly recently. But more importantly, with one of the archetypes that we'll be able to access very shortly. Well, I guess in Act 2. Alright. Let's skip all that. Alright, so as you can see here, the two main things that are being added to the Void Shadows DLC are two new archetypes, the Bladedancer and the Executioner. Bladedancer is all about agility and jumping around, attacking multiple times. Its main attributes are agility, weapon skill, strength, and toughness. I'm pretty sure its main priority is agility with weapon skill, and then strength and toughness can also be useful there as well. And we'll go through some of the abilities and talents and show you that. Now, I suppose. Alright, so looking at just Blade Dance itself, that's one of its abilities. The Blade Dancer makes 2 melee attacks against random targets, including allies. So be careful where you send this person. Adjacent to the Blade Dancer, each dealing 50% of their normal damage. Blade Dance is a melee burst attack that does not count towards the attack limit per turn. And this ability can only be used with a sword equipped. If 2 swords are equipped when you're dual wielding, you'll make 1 attack with each. Now, if you hover over here, it'll increase based on your agility bonus. So as you can see here, we got 2 plus agility bonus divided by 4, so that's why it's at 2 at the moment. And then same thing for this one is 1 agility bonus divided by 4. So the more agility you have, the more attacks you'll do. Obviously, you'd pick whatever skill you want, depending on which archetype you might want to go. If you're going to go with the new Executioner, you're going to want to get a high Medicae skill, but we'll get into that way later. And another ability they have, Death from Above. The Blade Dancer leaps into the air and lands on the selected cell. Upon landing, they deal 6 damage to all adjacent enemies. This leap can be made to any unoccupied space within 3 cell radius of the Blade Dancer's line of sight. This movement does not provoke attacks of opportunity. The Blade Dancer cannot jump to a cell that is inaccessible in combat. This ability can be used multiple times per turn, but each time use requires a charge to be spent. The Blade Dancer gains 1 charge of this ability each time they kill a target. excluding kills made from death from above. And this ability can be used with a sword equipped. So obviously we're going to be needing a lot of swords with the Bladedancer. Makes sense. And the ratio for this is agility bonus plus your, is that wisdom? Hang on a second. Oops. Weapon skill. Okay. Your agility plus your weapon skill. So the higher your agility and your weapon skill, the more damage this will do. Then we get our ultimate, Death Waltz. The Bladedancer uses death from above against a target, or uses the death from above against the target enemy without spending a charge, immediately making a melee attack against that enemy. The Bladedancer repeats this combination up to 2 plus agility bonus divided by 3 times against random available targets. If it is impossible to use death from above, the Bladedancer only makes a melee attack against a random available target. It can be the same enemy. So this is gonna be pretty cool. We'll get a lot of good combos out of there. Pretty solid, just ultimate. Maybe we'll probably use this quite often. All right, now let's look at the talents. Actually, before we do that, let's look at the abilities that we'll be able to access as well. Where is it? Should be right over here. Okay. So this one here, based on it being green, probably means it's like a movement ability. Acrobatic Artistry. The Bladedancer immediately returns to the cell where they started their turn. This movement does not provoke attack opportunity. If the Bladedancer used death from above this turn, this movement repeats all uses of the ability in reverse. Kind of cool. Oath of Vengeance. This ability costs 5 plus the Bladedancer's level divided by 2 wounds to use. The Bladedancer selects an ally. Until the end of combat, attacks made by the Bladedancer against enemies who have already attacked that ally gain plus 13% critical hit chance and critical 26%. Oh my god. And 26% critical damage. This ability can be used multiple times per turn, but the bonuses do not stack. So let's look at what dictates this. So 10 plus your agility bonus and 20 plus 2 times your weapon skill. So be 2 times your weapon skill plus 20. Neat. Then we got Veil of Blades. This ability costs 5 plus the Bladedancer's level divided by 2 wounds to use. The Bladedancer faces a side of their choice and immediately ends their turn. Until the beginning of the Bladedancer's next turn, they can dodge area of attacks without moving. They're immune to all types of force movement, gain 20% parry against attacks from that side, and can now parry attacks made against adjacent allies. While under the Veil of Blades, the Bladedancer can even parry range attacks, except area of effect ones, made from that side. The chance to parry a range attack is calculated as if it were a melee attack, where the weapon skill is equal to the hit chance of the attack. If an attack is parried in this way, it can be redirected towards one of the enemies on the selected side. The chance of the redirection is equal to half the Bladedancer's parry chance against this attack. Kinda neat. We got Blood Oath, another ability that uses your wounds. The Bladedancer targets a single enemy, vowing to dispatch their mark. The Bladedancer's next attack against their selected enemy cannot be dodged or parried. If this attack kills the target, the Bladedancer regains 11 wounds and gains plus 1 AP along with an additional attack this turn. This ability can be used multiple times per turn, but it grants plus 1 AP and additional attack only once per round. And that is dictated by your toughness bonus. So agility and toughness seem to be, and weapon skills seem to be the true choices to pick here. I guess strength is just going to be kind of like a backup. That's Blood Oath. And then last, we have Captive Audience. The Bladedancer's next attack inflicts bleeding 6 on all targets hit. These targets must pass a toughness resistance test with a -6 penalty or become immobilized for 1 round. All enemies immobilized by Captive Audience count as full cover for the Bladedancer and their allies when adjacent to those enemies. Kind of neat. And let's see here. It is based on your agility bonus and your weapon skill. Okay. Same thing with the penalty. Just agility. Alright, those are some interesting abilities. Kind of getting an idea of what they are meant to do. Just run around, dashing, hitting multiple targets, maybe potentially getting extra attacks. Potentially a bleed there, so that's kind of cool. Fortunately, I don't think swords tend to have bleed effects. Usually that's on axes, so maybe there's something to be said there, or maybe there's some new swords in the game that I don't know about yet. Alright, now let's look at our talents for this class. Archetype, whatever you want to call it. Alright, this one is Blade in his hand. Any Bladedancer attacks made with a sword deal agility % additional damage. This bonus is doubled if using a two-handed sword. Cool. Blinding Blades. Enemies attacked by the Bladedancer have their weapon skill, ballistic skill, and perception reduced by Bladedancer's weapon skill bonus plus 10 until the start of the Bladedancer's next turn. These penalties do not stack. Okay, not a bad passive. Death Warden. The Blademaster's Medicae is now determined by weapon skill instead of intelligence. If their weapon skill is higher. The Bladedancer deals 5 plus Medicae divided by 10% critical damage, and can use medkits as if having the Medicae skill, advancement, or the corresponding feature or talent. So it looks like we might want to have a decent Medicae skill here. At least it'll give you an option to use it. Which is actually important for the Executioner, but again, we'll get to that later. Race Against Death. The Bladedancer's maximum wounds are increased by your dodge. Rising Tempo. Each attack made by a Bladedancer increases the damage of all subsequent attacks they make this turn by 5%. This effect stacks up to 3 times. Area attacks, burst attacks, including Blade Dance, and any other attacks that deal multiple hits are considered single attacks. Cool. A little bit of damage increase. Steady Hand. The Bladedancer's parry is increased by your toughness % bonus. An attacker's melee critical hit chance bonus determined by the difference between the attackers and the Bladedancer's weapon skill characteristic is halved. Alright. Sweeping Motions. Your melee area attacks cost 1 less AP. Pretty sweet. Always good to have. So Anticipation. Whenever the Bladedancer parries a melee attack, while under the effect of Veil of Blades, they deal 50% of their normal damage to the attacker. Additionally, while they're under that effect, the Bladedancer's chance to deflect range attacks at an enemy is increased by 20%. So it looks like that's pretty solid. I wonder if there's some other combos we can kind of break with that to be able to get a ton of retaliations and such. And I'm curious if that deal of 50% of the normal damage, is that a nerf or is that a buff? Balancing on the Edge. The Bladedancer can use both a Desperate Measure and a Heroic Act in the same combat, but not in the same round. Whenever the Bladedancer uses a Desperate Measure, they gain plus 10 weapon skill and plus 3 resolve. Let me see if we can see the other version of it. It doesn't show us here. Maybe we could go back. Here it is. So that's that version. What is the Death Waltz version? Okay, the same. After performing Desperate Measures, the Bladedancer summons random trauma. Okay, so that could be pretty bad. Okay. Alright, Bless Scars. Whenever the Bladedancer is healed for the first time in a round, they are healed for an additional toughness bonus wounds and gain plus 10 toughness until the end of combat. And it stacks. Pretty cool. Blood Bonds. Every ally targeted by Oath of Vengeance gains the same bonuses as the Bladedancer against all affected enemies. So this would be good. This could be used well in tandem with your tank or vanguard. So maybe in combination with Abelard could be pretty good damage boost to your party, if not just your Bladedancer. With or without this talent, but definitely with Oath of Vengeance. Alright. Blood Rush. Whenever the Bladedancer uses an ability that costs wounds, they gain additional movement points. Cool. Bloody Requiem. Whenever the Bladedancer kills an enemy, their resolve is increased by 1. Okay. Maybe there could be something to be had there with a Psyker Bladedancer, for example. That actually might be a pretty cool build. A Psyker Bladedancer with, what was that? Sanctic Psyker? Anyways, we'll do some Theorycrafting in a moment. Dance Partners. As long as the Bladedancer has 2 swords equipped, the Bladedancer's weapon skill is increased by additional agility bonus. So it sounds like we want to have dual wielding for the most part. The Bladedancer deals an additional weapon skill bonus damage against enemies armed with a melee weapon. Okay. Whenever the Bladedancer dodges an attack made by an enemy who attacks them from the first time, the Bladedancer gains 1 charge of Death from Above. Cool. Facing the end. The Bladedancer will gain +3 weapon skill and +3 agility for every injury they are currently suffering, and +10 weapon skill and +10 agility for every trauma. Well, that's interesting, actually. But I wish I could, like, star this or something. So, here, we'll just... Oh, I guess we can't select it, damn it. Oh, I guess we got it to favorites. There we go. We'll come back to this one. Feel no pain. Whenever the Bladedancer uses an ability that costs wounds, they gain half of the wounds spent as temporary wounds. The number of temporary wounds gained cannot be decreased by the effects that reduce the cost of abilities. Okay. Interesting. Grand Audience. The targets affected by your captive audience have their armor, dodge, and parry reduced by a good percentage until the end of combat. The penalty is doubled again for targets failing the ability's toughness resistance check. Okay. Guillotine. Death from above deals double damage to enemies that have less than 50% health. Sweet. In-Death's Footsteps. Every time an enemy is killed by Bladedancer's allies, the amount of movement points Bladedancer gets on their next turn increases by 2. Okay, cool. More movement. It takes 2 if all allies strike. If all the oh my god. If all the strikes made as part of Bladedancer are directed against the same target, the last one deals double damage. Cool. So this would be good for, like, killing an elite or a boss target. Killing Rhythm. Whenever the Bladedancer kills an enemy with an attack of opportunity, the Bladedancer immediately gains 1 charge of death from above. Okay. Paid in Blood. Once the Bladedancer has killed 4 enemies in total, the next ability, which requires spending wounds, will cost no wounds and instead restore health. Cool. That's going to be a good one to have, I'm sure. Blood Oath restores an additional AP, and that's the one that lets you choose basically kind of like a marked target kind of thing. Shadow Dancer. As long as the Bladedancer has less than 50% wounds, they gain 12% dodge and +3 movement points. Damn. Sorry about the car noises, everyone. The Bladedancer also gains +8% dodge and +2 movement points for every unconscious ally in combat. Okay, cool. Kind of living on the edge build. I already have an idea of what this could work with as well. Slip Away. Whenever the Bladedancer uses a acrobatic artistry, their dodge and cover efficiency are increased by agility % bonus until the end of turn. The bonus is doubled against all attacks made by enemies during the Bladedancer's turn, including extra turns. Cool. Guess that's good if you are really trying to stack their dodge. Could be really useful with an assassin. Cough, cough, cough. Spinning Blades. Whenever the Bladedancer parries an attack, the number of attacks made by the next Blade Dance is increased by 1. Cool. Unforgiving. After the Bladedancer loses any number of wounds, their next attack deals 8% more damage. If the loss causes the Bladedancer to suffer an injury from trauma, the bonus damage is increased by 16. Alright. Kind of noticing a wounded build here. We can just go down here and so we'll just go down here and look at all the... I think there's anything new actually. Combat Master, melee superiority, dueling mastery, bonus parry, dual weapon combat. Okay, this will probably be useful for us to grab at some point. No, maybe. Sleep ability, action. So that's not, we're going to be using swords here, so that's not too good for us. Okay, so that looks like it is it. Alright, now some initial thoughts with, let me see if I can find the favorited. No, it's just there. So this one, Facing the End, Shadow Dancer, and Unforgiving. It wants us to be injured to get those bonuses, and if you want to like live on the edge, so to speak. Which makes me think that we might want to do the Death World with Wounded Beast and Lifetime of Scars. No, that's not Lifetime of Scars, but Wounded Beast for sure. Every injury, the bonus, or the increase of the Death World character's agility and willpower by 5. So that could be interesting. And every trauma counts as 3 injuries. So if this is working properly, we could potentially stack a lot of injuries and exponentially increase our agility and other damage sources. So if we do Death World, with the, I think it's the Minnesotan Priest. You see it here. Is that more him? No. Could have sworn there's something else. Well, I guess because of the stacking willpower bonus. Maybe that's why I thought of this one immediately. Alright, maybe not necessarily with the Minnesotan Priest. But yeah, stacking Death World with the Wounded Beast, with the... These talents could potentially be some good stuff. But of course, getting yourself wounds and injuries may not necessarily be a good thing in the long run. But, you know, maybe there's something there. Alright. Let's move on to the other new class, or archetype, the Executioner. This one is all about applying damage over time, as you can see here. Let's go back to the other screen first. Doesn't let us want to select it, so we can't bring it up on this part. We'll just do our best to read this site here. So Executioners are specialists at inflicting enduring excruciating pain on all enemies around them, and unfortunately gets cut off, to quickly eradicate their adversaries. So damage over time effects, melee, something, negative effects, crowd control, large number, blah, blah, blah. Oh wait, can we do it from here? Oh, can't. Alright. So it looks like we get 2 passives, and then an ability right from the get-go. So one of our passives, Force Repentance. Whenever the Executioner inflicts a damage over time effect on the target, which is already suffering from an effect of the same type, the damage immediately suffers an additional instance of damage of the initial effect. All damage over time effects of this type on this target, including one just inflicted, and the ones that will be possibly inflicted later, have their level increased by your Medicae skill divided by 15. This bonus will stack, so if you're going to be playing with this archetype in mind, you definitely want to have a high Medicae skill. Oh, here we go. Now it's showing everything up there on top. Yeah, so melee damage, negative effects, crowd control, large number of wounds. Cool. Alright, Scourging Strikes. The Executioner's melee attacks inflict additional strength bonus levels of bleeding on all targets hit. This effect is applied after all other effects from the attacks are applied. And where it hurts. If the target of the Executioner's next successful attack is under any damage over time effects, this target will immediately suffer 3 instances of damage from each of these attacks, or these effects. 2 instances of the Executioner make a burst or area of attack. This damage is dealt after all other effects from the attack are applied. Then all damage over time effects are removed from the target. This ability is applied instead of Scourging Strikes, and removes all stacks of Force Repentance. Interesting. So let me just reread this real quick. So, So I'm wondering if this is when, if like you would use this as a finisher, or if you're just really trying to just put on the hurt. I guess we'll have to read everything else to really see. All right, and then their ultimate abilities are Carnival of Misery, rather. Until the end of combat, all damage dealt to the enemies have the damage over time effects is increased by 100% after all other modifiers. This effect stacks and can be inflicted by more than one Executioner, so that's interesting. Okay. That's actually really interesting, because then maybe there's some synergy here. So say if you have a Pyromancer Executioner and maybe just a Bleed Warrior type character as well. Focus on axes and such, just get as much bleeds, and then have another person do fire. That could be really interesting. Really interesting. Okay. Now let's look at the rest of the abilities we have. Exsanguination. The Executioner immediately inflicts bleeding 5 on an ally of their choice, including themselves. That ally will gain a 5 plus medicated bonus divided by 10% bonus to dodge and plus 3 additional MP movement points until bleeding ends for any reason. Okay. Interesting. Gift of Torment. Until the next turn, the Executioner gains bonuses to their parameters for each creature, enemy, or ally in combat suffering from the following damage over time effects: Bleeding, Burning, and Toxin. So if we have Bleeding on people... Oh, I think I know that's that. So Bleeding will give us more armor, Burning will give us more dodge, and Toxin will give us more deflection. So Toxin. I think this might actually apply to the Psyker Toxin. That could be very interesting, especially Burning and Toxin together. Interesting. Okay. Merciless Verdict. The Executioner's next range attack or Psychic Staff ability inflicts a damage over time effect on all targets hit. The type of this effect depends on the attack damage type. Physical damage inflicts Toxin. Energy damage inflicts Burning. The level of this damage over time effect is equal to your minimum weapon damage divided by 7. This effect is only applied once per target after all other effects from the attack are applied. Cool. I like that. It does specify Psychic Staff, so that's neat. But then the fact that just physical damage automatically becomes toxins could be really good to help stack that deflection, so I already like that a lot. Pain Resonance. So this will affect all enemies within an area of effect. All enemies suffering from damage over time effects in a 4-cell radius around the Executioner immediately suffer an extra instance of damage from these effects. They must also pass a resistance test with a Meta K5 penalty to suffer an additional negative effect. The effect and type of the resistance test depends on the initial damage over time effect. Dang, that's pretty nasty. Bleeding will cause agility resistance tests to become blinded, Burning for slowed, Toxin for staggered. Damn. That's pretty good. These additional effects are removed at the start of the Executioner's next turn. That's pretty cool. I like that. Reckless Abandon. You replace 30% of your maximum health with the same number of temporary wounds until the end of combat. While the Executioner has temporary wounds, all of their melee attacks and damage over time effects deal an additional 30% of their maximum wounds % damage. Okay. So it sounds like toughness is definitely going to be something we want to have. At least a lot of health, so that's one way to do it, is getting a lot of toughness. Terrifying Strike. The Executioner's next melee attack forces all enemies hit to run away from the Executioner in a straight line up to 3 cells. During this movement, the targets do not provoke attacks opportunity and leave a bloody trail on the ground, which remains until the end of combat. Movement through these blood-stained cells costs the Executioner 0 movement points. Okay, that's kind of cool. I also like that it costs 0 AP. Oh, I guess because it says your next attack. Interesting. Now, do they take that immediately, that movement? I guess so. Cool. Maybe that could be very useful for helping to reposition yourself. Alright, now let's look at our talents for the Executioner. Acute Pain. Whenever an enemy suffers damage from the damage over time effect inflicted by the Executioner for the first time in combat, the damage is increased by 100%. Okay. Decent. Not crazy, but decent. Okay, yeah. That's what I thought. Just decent. If an enemy suffering damage or from any... Oh my god. If an enemy suffering from any of the Executioner's damage over time effects is suffering from Bleeding, Burning, including the effects of inflicted by a Pyromancer or a Navigator, and Toxin, including the effects inflicted by a Biomancer. Oh, CC was right. Biomancer Psyker does count. Okay, that's definitely some synergy here. Dipping with the Pyromancer and a Biomancer Psyker. Very good to know. At the same time, all these effects deal... Oh, that's going to be fantastic. Okay, cool. So the more dot types we have, the more damage it's going to deal. That's going to be really good. Particularly if you're a Psyker. Anatomy Expert. The maximum number of wounds for the Executioner depends on their Meta K instead of their toughness. Interesting. You can get this pretty freaking sky high, too. With various items in the game. Battle of Attrition. At the start of each round, all enemies suffering from any damage over time effects, including inflicted by the Executioner, have their incoming damage of time by any source increased by 20%. Okay. So that just sounds like it's going to get bigger and bigger every turn. Bleeding Stigmata. Targets of Exsanguination are also immune to Toxin and Burning while suffering from bleeding. Okay. So this is going to be more for the bleed build, I suppose. Not the burning Psyker, because the Psyker wants to be caught on fire, so this is not going to be good on him. Or her. Bloody Trail. While moving, all bleeding enemies leave a bloody trail on the ground. Okay, so it's like that other ability. Moving through the bloodshed. Okay, cool, cool, cool. Death in the air. Whenever the enemy suffers from a toxin inflicted by the Executioner dies, all enemies in a 2-cell radius around that enemy suffer 3 levels of toxin. And that's enhanced by your intelligence bonus. Okay, cool. That's actually interesting. I wonder if there's ways for us to really apply a lot of toxin without being a biomancer. Maybe through the operator? Because I know the operator can be part of this, so maybe there's something there with that. Because they tend to want to have high intelligence. Alright, the level of the damage over time effect inflicted by Executioner's Merciless Verdict. That's this one right here to remember. Increases by maximum weapon damage by 5. Okay, cool. Deep Laceration. When using Scourging Strikes, the Executioner's melee critical hits inflict 3 times your strength bonus, levels of bleeding on all their targets, instead of 2 times. Okay. Does it hurt? All damage over time effects inflicted by the Executioner have a 20% crit chance. Cool. This chance is increased by all bonuses to crit hit. Okay, cool. Cool, cool, cool. Everlasting Agony. The duration of negative effects inflicted by pain resonance is increased by 1 round, and the penalty of the corresponding resistance is increased to 26, based on your Medicae. Medicae? Whatever. Fragile Playthings. The first instance of damage dealt by the Executioner's damage over time effects in a round reduces the enemy's armor by 13% until end of combat. And that's dictated by your intelligence bonus. The effect can be inflicted multiple times per round, but only once per enemy. Hardened Body. Whenever the Executioner or their party members are suffering from any damage over time effects, these effects deal only 50% of their damage. Stacks multiplicatively 50% of the damage if there is 1 Executioner with his talent in the party, 25% if there are 2. Okay. So it'll never be 100%, but that's still pretty cool. Internal Bleeding. When pushing an enemy, the Executioner also inflicts 3 levels of bleeding on that enemy. Interesting. I love pushing people around in the game. It's a lot of fun. Invigorating Screams. When an enemy in a 4-cell radius around the Executioner suffers damage from a damage over time effect, the Executioner regains 1 wound. And that's dictated by your toughness. Okay. Cool. So that'd be a good way to heal yourself. Alright, here's one called Maddening Flames. At the start of your turn, an enemy suffering from a burning inflicted by the Executioner must make a willpower resistance test. If failed, the burning is removed, and the enemy falls prone until the start of the next turn. Okay. I don't know how I feel about that. Prone is a very good condition to have, but getting rid of the burning, maybe not necessarily the best thing, although I guess you could just reapply it. Master of Torture. The Executioner deals 5% more damage to a target for each type of damage or time effect inflicted by a target. Okay. Just overall more damage. Perfect Anatomy, just straight up more armor. That's going to be good, especially if we're going to be taking a lot of our own damage over time, so help reduce that damage. Racking Weakness. Damage dealt by the Executioner's damage over time effects is increased by 1%, which is dictated by your Medicae. For every 10% penalty to suffer by a target. Okay. Reprieve. If the Executioner uses Reckless Abandon in their previous turn, by the start of their turn they have temporary hit points, they're healed for 2 wounds. Oh, if they still have the temporary wounds, they get healed based on your maximum wounds. Okay, cool. And the Reckless Abandon... Oh, that's one that gives you the temporary shield. Okay, cool. That looks like a good ability. Reveling in Suffering. Each adjacent creature counts as 2 for the purpose of calculating bonuses granted by Gift of Torment. Interesting. So this could be a good thing to have if you're a melee character, inflicting all this stuff. Sickening Pain. Whenever a single instance of damage from any of the Executioner's damage over time effects deals damage equal to more than 10% of the enemy's maximum wounds, that enemy gains 1 stack of fatigue. Okay, cool. That's going to be pretty nasty. To debuff them on top of, burning or bleeding them alive. Sower of Distress. Enemies suffering from any damage over time effect inflicted by the Executioner also suffers a -6 penalty to the resistance test, and that's dictated by your Medicae. Tormenting Sprain. Whenever an enemy suffering from any of the Executioner's damage over time effects dodges the Executioner's attack, all damage over time effects currently inflicted on that enemy now deal 10% damage. Damn. Unbearable Presence. Targets of Terrifying Strike now make a penalty to their willpower sex. Oh my gosh. To their willpower test. If failed, they provoke attacks of opportunity from the Executioner allies during the forced movement. Okay, cool. That actually makes that ability a lot better since now you can make it so anybody can attack on it. Vivisection. The Executioner gains +6 bonus to Lore Xenos. Kind of random. But maybe that might be useful if you want to use those Drukhari weapons. That could be cool. Alright, that's looking kind of like a fun archetype. Interesting. Very interesting. Alright, so we go back to the archetypes here. We can see, so the Bladedancer can become an Assassin, a Master Tactician, an Arc Militant, and an Executioner. Just basically looking at the a lot of the abilities of the Bladedancer, I can immediately tell it's going to be a fantastic Assassin. Easily. That's going to probably be one of the better choices to pick for your Bladedancer. I can see some arguments for the Arc Militant as well. That could be pretty solid. I don't think it has much value as a Master Tactician. I'll probably look at that later. See if there's any changes in there that make sense for the Bladedancer. As for the Executioner, I don't think Bladedancers make the best Executioners. I mean, they make decent passive ones, but not a lot. They don't have a lot of bleeding effects other than that one ability I saw in there. I guess it really depends on any new swords added, because usually axes are what generates bleeds. In which case, I think the best Executioner by far is going to be the Warrior. But as you can see here, the Operative can also be an Executioner, and a lot of that stuff did scale off intelligence, so maybe there's something to be had there with the Operative. Again, maybe there's new weaponry or some other ways to inflict toxin that only the Operator can do, or perhaps they can do better. Let me just do a quick little scan just to make sure. Just mostly exposing. See if there's any new abilities here. Nope, same. Looks like the same stuff, really. So maybe there's just some kind of weapon that might help out with that. All right. So now that we read the new archetypes, just off the bat, like I said, Bladedancer into Assassin is probably gonna be really good. Like they could probably be passable Executioners. But as you can see here, we want weapon skill, strength, toughness, and agility. Whereas if we go to Assassin, let's say what we want here. Agility, intelligence, perception, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so agility and weapon skill for sure will be for the Assassin. Typically when you're making an Assassin character, you want to like go all or go for broke pretty much. So you just want to get all agility or all perception. You don't really want to do both. Because most of your abilities choose your higher dodge skill or your oh, what the hell is that damn thing? Let me see if I can find it. Well, look, click on it. Dang it, it won't. Let me see from here. Nope. Here, let's just go to characteristics real quick. Perception. It's like anti-dodge, something like that. Yeah, reduces the enemy chance. So it's pretty much the Assassin works by reducing your enemy's dodge chance or increasing your own dodge chance. So yeah, that's why I think the Bladedancer would make an amazing Assassin. Not to mention all the movement and all that stuff. So yeah, that's going to be definitely the play for sure. For Executioners, Warriors are going to be fantastic if you want to be like a Berserker type build. I definitely did that before in another playthrough with my Warrior and Arc Militant. I think the Executioner will do just fine as well. Similarly, I think the Warrior Executioner would be fantastic in combination of the Sanctioned Psyker. In particular, the Pyromancer, obviously, with all those dots and such that we're going to be able to add on top of everything. Although it should be noted that Biomancy would be a good candidate for that too, just for the fact that we have this biophysical distortion, which just counts as a toxin, and which applies to all those Executioner abilities. In that same instance, though, perhaps you might consider even being a Biomancer operative with the Executioner, or perhaps a Pyromancer operative into the Executioner. But I think ultimately, the best archetype for the Executioner is going to be a Warrior. Just having all those extra attacks and other ways to inflict bleed. I don't think there's anything here that actually specifically inflicts bleed. There might be. Let me double check. Where's the damn ability? Nothing here. Maybe I'm just thinking because of all the abilities they have, but there's a lot of other things in here that kind of help out with that build. In particular, with the Pyromancer Warrior, I kind of like to make it a tankier build to be self-inflicting in terms of setting yourself on fire and becoming tankier by having high deflection and based on whatever your origin world is. For that particular build, hands down, the best homeworld for fire, like a what's the word? Self-immolation type build would probably be the Forge build, mostly because we got here the Fires of the Forge, which will make us take reduced damage to burning effects. But more importantly, we get these subsystems here: the analytic system, the locomotion, and the subskin armor. Analytic system is kind of a bait. Don't really ever pick this one because eventually you're going to get to 100% crit chance through other means, and which will make this kind of a dead talent. Locomotion system is a fantastic for assassins, since you get hella dodge and movement points. Forge World will make really good Bladedancers as well for the same reasons. So this is going to be a good Bladedancer build as well. But if I'm going to do that tankier Psyker self-immolation thing, I'm probably going to do the subskin armor to get even more armor to help reduce damage we take to ourselves. But yeah, so that should be a really fun build. Yeah, I can't wait to play it. This DLC, I mean. I haven't had much chance, even though I had access to the early access. Even though I had the ability to play the early access, I haven't had much time to play it myself. So I'm looking forward to be able to play this with you guys. Hope this gives you kind of an idea of what to expect for some of the new archetypes and perhaps other abilities to intermingle. Let me see if we can look through the exemplar real quick, see if there's anything in here that might be slightly different. That might be new. I don't think. I'll just click through all these. If you guys need to, you can pause and such. I'm pretty sure most of these are still the same. I'll call out if I see something different. So far, it all looks very similar or the same. You know, I really want to figure this out. So I don't think I've ever been able to unlock this before, so I gotta check this out at some point. The Awakened Psyker stuff. Puncture, is that new? No, that's just about armor penetration. Alright, none of this looks too different. Perhaps they changed a few numbers here and there, but none of those names really popped out at me. Alright. So yeah. Alright, hope you guys liked the quick little look at some of the abilities and stuff, and perhaps a little brief theory crafting. Of course, I'll go much more in depth to these guides at a later time. I just wanted to showcase some of the stuff for you in case some of you are at work or still, I'm not really sure what you're getting to if you get this DLC. Like I said, I still have yet to play it. I've only glanced at some of the stuff because I've been really busy, but this coming week and weekend, you'll be streaming this DLC on my YouTube and my Twitch, so be sure to subscribe to either of those. They should be in the comments or in my bio. Furthermore, there is a community poll on my YouTube channel asking you folks what you think I should be playing as my first run. As of recording this, I'm pretty sure as of right now, the community poll has the Pyromancer Psyker winning with Warrior Executioner build that focuses on dots. But not too far behind is the Crime Lord Sniper Bladedancer Assassin build. However, while the Crime Lord could be a really good candidate here, I think the Death World, honestly, Crime Lord Death World Bladedancer could be really good. Or perhaps the Crime Lord Forge World Bladedancer could be also really good. Or perhaps even Fortress World. But anyways, feel free to vote for this this poll. I'm gonna have it keep going until Friday. Currently, it is Monday, so feel free to vote on this, and we'll be streaming either on Friday or Saturday. I'll definitely post in my community postings when that's gonna happen. All right, hope you guys enjoyed this quick little look into the DLC, and I'm looking forward to playing it with you folks. I don't think I'm going to quite do a Grimdark run just yet right off the bat, but I wouldn't be too opposed to doing an unfair right off the bat. At the very least, we're going to do daring if we don't do unfair. But we probably won't do Grimdark because, you know, there might be bugs or just, you know, don't know what to expect, so I don't want to do that just yet. Maybe our second run. But anyways, yeah, so I really hope you guys enjoyed this, and by all means, ask any questions, or perhaps comment down below what you are kind of theory crafting as well. All right, yeah, I hope to look forward to see you guys in the stream. Please go ahead and vote to see what kind of playthrough we would like to do first. And until next time, everyone, I'll see you in the next video. Farewell for now.